Hiya! I'm back with a process video of my latest commission, which is of the character you're seeing on the screen right now, which is a were-rabbit with Down syndrome. She's a middle schooler. Her name is Bunny Earickson, and she shows up in, I think, season 2 of the G3 TV show. I haven't seen the episode that she's in just yet. But here you can see the mock-ups that I did for her, plans that I made. We in the end decided on some brighter colors for her skin tone, which I forgot to add that picture in here, but rest assured I went with brighter colors than this. And we decided we would work on a Catty Noir doll. I had two options. I offered to work on a Cupid doll so that the skin tone would be closer, but my commissioner really liked the idea of working on a catty base, so that I did, and I shrunk her head for the first time ever, which caused a couple problems, but I'm doing my best to work on them. Here you see me going in with the first round of epoxy to make little sculpting bases for her head and also cover up the holes in her chest. I wasn't able to show a lot of the mods that I did with my Dremel because filming on my balcony is really difficult to get the lighting right, but to also then not show like the parking lot that's right behind my house, which I feel like would be like low-level doxing myself. So you'll just have to trust me. I sewed in the sculpting bases. I had to let those set for a day before I could sew those in. And with shrunk heads, you want to kind of work as fast as possible because the head hardens with time as like all of the acetone evaporates. For the head shrinking, I used Cadmelian's slow shrinking method, which is 9 parts acetone, 1 part water, and then you leave it in for 24 hours, 48 hours, I think. I rooted around the ponytail area on the top of her head first, and then rooted that in quite sparsely, and then rooted the rest of her head with this blend that I also used for my summer doll. And then I got the glue in, and her head was already getting so hard now. And then here's where this doll really gave me a lot of trouble, and why that I couldn't get her smaller than I wanted to, or as small as I wanted to, which is that her leg, her thigh is structured in this really interesting way where there's the outside casing, but then an inside mechanism that lets it turn, but it just doesn't it doesn't lend itself to easy disassembly, I'll say that much. Here I'm using 2-part epoxy glue. I should have been wearing gloves, but I'm using that to reattach the limbs together. And if you've seen my Rosy Maple Moth video, I'm using the same method, but here I'm using it on her arms and her legs. And then on her thighs, I used a lot of wire to attach it back together. But because there's the inner mechanism and then the outside casing, it was really tricky to try and get her sturdy while also preserving the articulation. So I just did my best. And now I'm also, for the first time ever, using cosplay to make Bunny's ears. I wanted to make them with something that would be a bit more sturdy and also a little bit more lightweight. And I embedded some wires into the ears to try and make them posable. Here you can see I'm making 2 pairs of ears, one without the wires and also 2 different sizes, just to see what I would like, because I've never worked with cosplay before. I've never made such big ears on a doll before. And then we're going in with our second round of epoxy to reinforce the leg joint and also fill in some of the gaps already. This is the same thing as usual. I have a cup of water next to me. It's that color because I also used it as paint water. Don't worry about it. And I'm wearing gloves and just squishing the epoxy clay into any bit where there's gaps, and then using the water to smooth it out. So here there's the neck, the legs, the arms, the back where there was a tail hole, the chest where I sanded off the boobs, and here I'm carving down the epoxy that I added to add reinforcements to the leg to make sure it didn't impede on any of the articulation of the knee. And then I also am adding some aluminum foil to fill up the leg. First of all, because this leg was really loose, and I hoped squishing some aluminum foil in there would stop it from spinning out of control. Because, like, if you can see, there's the bit where I cut it off, and in there's just a plate that is attached to the rest of the leg and the lower leg. I don't know if that made sense, but it was really kind of confusing to work on. And then I added some like slightly scrunched aluminum foil around that bit of the leg so that I could sculpt on top of it. But this was really incredibly tricky. If you're working on Catty, I wish you so much luck trying to get that girl to be shorter. It's just so difficult. Then I'm making a new pair of ears that's a bit smaller than the bigger pair of ears I made, but bigger than the smaller pair of ears I made. Same method, and I'm leaving this little loop at the bottom so that I can attach it to the sculpting base on the top of the head. And all in all, like my first time working with cosplay, it's very, very similar to Fimo. Maybe a bit less, like, at least less of an oily residue, where Fimo I feel like really leaves a lot of a residue in my hands. But it feels quite similar. And I got the medium firm one. I thought that would be the texture of the clay in my hands, but it also seems to be the flexibility of the clay, because it's honestly quite stiff. But it worked as I wanted it to work. So now I'm using that little loop I left, and I'm sewing it to the threads that I used to sew the sculpting base to the head. And then I'm going to go over that with epoxy clay to secure the ears in the right position and like blend them into the head, kind of. Right now I'm looking up at the doll on my shelf. I'm actually recording this as she isn't fully finished yet. Like, I wished that she would be finished, but because I shrunk her head, I had to heat up her head to get her back onto her neck peg. But because I'd already painted the head, I didn't want to get her wet and like put her into boiling water the way you would usually do. So I put her in the oven at 100 degrees, like preheated the oven and everything, and then put her on top of a little like aluminum foil structure to make sure that she wouldn't be in contact with anything that was actually that hot. And I think, like, I don't know, I think I did a couple things wrong, because the shape of her head is all deformed now that she's on the neck peg, and I'm gonna see if I can fix it, but it's just incredibly stressful, you know? It's just incredibly stressful. Speaking of it being incredibly stressful, right now I'm tinting this piece of fabric to be slightly darker orange to match the concept art. Later, looking at the pictures of Bunny, she has some incredibly vivid colors on her, but I personally just don't love using like full chroma colors, so I stuck with trying to tint it to be a bit darker. I'm closing my commissions, basically. And it's not because I don't like doing commissions. I actually love being able to talk with the client and talk through their ideas and then be able to bring their vision, their idea to life. I think that's one of my favorite parts of being an artist. However, I have too strong of like imposter syndrome, and I'm too critical of my own art. Here, I'm laying out the pattern because Bunny has these little carrots on her legs, and I wanted it to be an even pattern. Anyways, I'm too critical of myself. I don't have the confidence. And whenever I look at this commission, which is almost done, and I've done my best at every step of the process, I've put in so much care and so much thought and so much time to the point that I'm like questioning whether I should raise my commission prices, because I've put in an absolutely unsustainable amount of time into this doll. And yet, I look at her and I feel like I could do better. I feel like my work isn't good enough. I feel like everything about it is wrong. And I know that this is just a feeling. I know that it isn't true. It's just incredibly stressful to constantly be feeling that the work I'm putting in isn't good enough and isn't worth it. And I don't think that that is a good place to come from when it comes to commissions, because even if I put in all my time, and even if my commissioner absolutely loves it, by the way, here I'm priming with a white paint, which is something I've seen LPS YouTubers do, like a thin dry brush layer of white paint. I just... I've re-recorded this 3 times already because my partner is making pesto and it keeps distracting me. Even if the commissioner absolutely loves it, tells me they love the doll, in the end, I keep looking at it and only seeing the flaws, only seeing where I feel like I should have put in more time, where I should have put in more effort, where at some point I've charged a certain amount for the doll. At some point, like, I hope fellow artists know this feeling where it's like I've put in the reasonable amount of time. Maybe even more. Maybe I've put in an unreasonable amount of time. Like, it's time for me to say, this is finished, it is done, and I've put in the amount of effort too. But I just look at it and see everything that's wrong with it. And all the places in which maybe if I spend 6 more hours on it, it will be better. Which isn't true. That isn't how art works. It's not you put more time in, it's gonna always be better. It's at some point, you're just putting in extra time because you don't feel confident. And that is where I'm at, where selling a finished doll that I've made to my own, like, vision, I find easier, but even then I sometimes feel like, ugh, is this good enough? But then if I've talked to a commissioner and talked to them about what they want, and then say, I can do this for you, if at the end it doesn't feel true to what I promised, I feel so bad. And I already am not doing too hot. One of the reasons that this commission is so delayed is because my mental health has been, like, struggling a little bit, which is the same thing as I've talked about in previous videos of the way that my finances aren't very stable, the way that finding a job is incredibly hard. Now the state of the world is also just getting more and more stressful. And, like, my finances this month are actually going to be quite good because I just worked a ton. But that also did not help my mental health. Working the night shift in a factory is maybe something that, like, I hope you never have to do in your life. But so this doll is right now sitting on my shelf. I finished painting her face yesterday and then today tried to reattach her head to her body, and it just didn't work, which is so stressful. It's so stressful. I feel like it deformed her head, and I feel like I just look at her and I see everything that's wrong with her and all the ways that she doesn't look like the concept art, even though I did my absolute best. And I think it would be good for me not to do commissions, even though I've only done 2. I've only done 2 right. Here, I hope you saw it, with this doll, because I'm doing a full skin tone change, I put some UV activated super glue on all the joint areas that are likely to rub, to try and protect the paint. I don't know if it really worked, so there's some useless info. For the face, I did the usual, did a light acrylic color and sketched out the face, and then slowly but surely worked my way towards the colors that I wanted and the shapes that I wanted, carving at things and everything. I went in with quite a yellow color for these, like, little gradiented areas, and in the end it looked so bright yellow, so then I went over it with some white but tried to leave it a bit painterly and stuff. It's just, I really like how her face came out, even if I'm terrified she doesn't look enough like the picture of Bunny that I have on my phone down there. But then her face got squished getting the head back on the neck peg. I have her right here, and, like, I feel like the clothes don't fit right. I feel like her face doesn't have the right shape. I feel like her hair got singed when I took her out of the oven. I dropped her. And how I'm now trying to fix it is I filled her head with glue, and I'm trying to have that hold on to the neck peg, but I'm worried that the glue won't set. So I might have to troubleshoot. And also putting her in the oven straightened her hair, which had these perfect little waves in it, which felt absolutely exactly what I needed for Bunny. And then they just up and left, which is so frustrating. I'm quitting my commissions. I might open them in the future, but for now, this is not good for me. Thank you for watching. I will put a clip after this when I figured it all out and prepare the commission to be sent off to the commissioner. I'm also like staying in contact with my commissioner and checking in if there's anything that they're bothered by. I really need to fix the head because I made glasses for her that only fit on the head shape that she used to have, not the head shape she has now. Like, this is just, yeah, I was gone for a month and now I'm back and I'm on the struggle bus, guys. And I hope things are going better for you than they're going for me, because they're going not so good for me. And that's all right. That's all right. It's the ups and downs of life. Yeah, you're watching me dress the doll now. I hope to be back soon with a clip where I fixed everything. And until then, see you later, I guess. It's really not. Yeah, we're all fine. It's all okay. Oh my god. Wait, no. Wait. Oh shit. So, I've actually just pulled off her head, and the neck peg was in her head. And I don't know if you see this. So, I could have seen this coming because the glue that I use is acetone based, but it has fully dissolved the plastic of her neck. And I know that the plastic will set again. But oh my god. After a gentle crash out, I referred back to like the fairy godmother of all doll customizers, Delightful, and her video on fixing a broken neck peg. What I did in the end is I took actually part of a doll rerouting needle, because it's the strongest wire that I have basically, threaded it through the neck side to side, and made sure to embed a piece of elastic in there. Sew the elastic into a loop, and I secured that with this UV glue that I've been using for basically everything. I sealed it also with epoxy Sculpt, and then to attach it to her head, I basically just sewed this really strong, thick thread through the head to make another loop. Now here you can see that I have the elastic cut open, and I'm so glad that I had an extra jar of the skin tone paint. I'm using the skin tone paint to not only fix the bits that got rubbed off in the neck peg fiasco, but also to fix the coloring of her face, because she had definitely gone a bit yellow in the oven. Maybe to be expected. You can see it here on the ears. Like, that color difference is diabolical. You can also see that I curled her hair again. I realized that the temperature of the oven is hot enough to affect the texture of the hair, so curled the hair, reshaped the head. It was really squished last time. Now I'm happy with the shape again. I repainted some of her face to fix the tones, and also the sealant had gone a bit milky, so I'm just fixing all the colors, putting her pupils back in. You can see how much that brings her back to life. And I am just really glad that I was able to put in the time to fix all of these little bits, because I learned so much in this process, but I also messed up so often. Here I'm reattaching the head with that thick thread. I hid it under her ponytail, and now her head is securely attached, even if it's a bit wobblier than it would be with a neck peg. I varnished all of the new paintwork and glossed her little eyes, and and now she's finished. Also, just in case you're wondering, I put her in the oven because I don't have a heat gun. I don't have any way other than boiling water to heat her, and I was so worried it was going to ruin either her ears or her face, so that's why I did that. I'll be back with a little reveal. Before I end this video, I want to say a massive thank you to Shayla, which is the name of my commissioner. Thank you so much for trusting me. Thank you so much for being patient and understanding with me. This was a real trust the process doll. There were so many parts of it where I was really frustrated, and in the end I'm actually so happy with how she turned out, and I feel like I really stretched myself and learned just so much actually. Here I have her set up next to Catty, which is the doll I used as her base, and then also next to Helene, who is about the same height, so I thought that would be a cute comparison. And then I have her with her glasses. I gave you a little look at her outfit. I hope you liked her. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.